I needed to focus for the last 7 years on healing my mental state and my emotional state, because when you channel, whatever you feel, whatever your mind is focused on, that's the frequency you're going to channel. So if one isn't focused on the most positive energies, or if they're focused on things that are self-centered, self-serving, and it depends on the motivation, on what kind of energy you're going to bring through. And so it's my intention to bring through positive service to others, energies that's not deceptive or misleading or negative with a capital N, which would be controlling and fear-based. So I haven't channeled for 7 years. We've been focusing on my healing because I had a lot of fear. A lot of fear, not just about channeling, but about my whole, everything, a lot of trauma. And so I accumulated a lot of heavy stuff, and now it feels like it's time to bring through the information that I'm able to bring, which has been coming in bits and pieces over the years, but actually this is the first focused channeling session where we've all come together as a group. We have all of our consciousness to facilitate this, and Eric has prepared questions. And so the focus has been to make this a channeling session. And the point I'm leading up to is that as soon as I sit down and I start to focus on myself, I can feel the energy there. And it's because of you're here.
Oh.
Not just you, but all of us, like I said, back to. But yeah, we have a really strong connection. Because there's some really high vibrational positive energy here.
May I ask with whom we are speaking this evening?
We're the Lyran Council for Assistance to the Earth.
Can you tell us something about yourselves?
We originate on Lyra, which no longer exists in your Earth plane, and we traveled here for this conversation. And we are a family of Lyran feline beings who work with the Black Swan Sibyl ET healing team.
And do you have a purpose in communicating with us?
We're answering the calling.
Can you say something about the calling? Whose calling is it?
Well, it's your calling. It's our calling. It's the calling of those who want to see a better place on this planet.
So, the word love is used to mean many things. Can you tell us your perspective on love? What is love?
Love is all there is. Love is everything. Love permeates this existence. Love is.
And what can we do to become more loving?
We love ourselves first, understanding and unconditionally accepting each other. First is possible with loving and understanding and accepting oneself as part of the one. One is part of the one infinite creator, and one individual is an expression of that love. So to love oneself is to accept everything about oneself and to align oneself with the highest version of oneself, which is to move in the direction of unity. So the opposite of love would be to not accept oneself and to perpetuate a separation of self to other.
Sometimes we can feel attraction for people who are not good for us. For example, they may be selfish and take more from us than they give back. My question about this is, why do we find such people attractive? Why do we find selfishness attractive?
This is also love, because the self one also wants to expand. So it's a self-loving act to love another self, that shows oneself the areas in which oneself desires to evolve and expand, to gain more love, to feel more love, and to experience love. So it's a more deep, it's a exploration of depth of love, because all there is love. So in specific situations or specific circumstances, each person who is having that experience would do well to ask themselves why I chose to have this experience, or what loving thing I did for myself in order to choose to have this feeling of love, this version of love.
And how can we tell the difference between what you might call a more selfish love and a more true love?
It would be a frequency, a subtle frequency that you feel within yourself. When you tune into your feelings and you learn yourself and you are familiar with yourself and your feelings, then you can feel how you feel when you are in the presence of another self. And when you master your own feelings and knowing the feelings of yourself, and you're in the presence of another self, then you can feel the subtle difference in their frequency, or the frequency that is offered to you when you have that experience and the presence within. So it's learning the subtle feelings of frequency, first with oneself, and then recognizing the experiences of another self. And you can maintain a loving feeling in the presence of another self whose frequency isn't in alignment with your feeling. But then that's when you notice it's brought to your attention what the judgments that you have are, and what the opinions that prevent you from unity, to see that other self. So if God can hold a space for those that have not yet achieved God ability, then God is doing a service by holding that loving space of non-judgment and unconditional acceptance for that other being to eventually have enough experiences to align with its own God frequency. So as we're on earth, we're all at different levels of a God frequency, and some of us are able to love ourselves when we're in the presence of another being who has not yet achieved their loving being state. And when we have a desire to master all of our feelings, then we can see when we have judgment, when we have feelings about other beings. Those feelings are our loving energy. It's our evolution. It's our opportunity to refine ourselves and to align our frequency with an even higher level of our own God being.
What does it mean for a human being to be worthy?
It's a state of being. It just is. There is no unworthy. There is only worthy. It's the perception of that individual human being and the experience that they chose to have that gives them the frequency of the illusion of, quote, being unworthy, because there is actually no such thing. It's only an illusion, an imaginary exploration of frequency. All is worthy. All are worthy. It's judgment that creates the illusion. that it's otherwise.
What can a human being do to be worthy?
Just be a human being. All human beings are worthy. Worthy of what? Worthy of love, worthy of existence, worthy of abundance, worthy of joy. There is no unworthy. There is only love. There is only joy in every moment.
So why do we sometimes feel worthless?
It relates to the question you asked before about other human beings who may be selfish or who may have a different frequency. And that is that it's a choice to explore different frequencies. It's a choice to have different experiences.
What can we do to get in touch with our worth and feel more worthy?
It's going to vary from person to person. It'll be different for everybody, depending on the experiences that each person has chosen to have. But there are things that we're doing like this, and that is just feeling one's feelings. Focus attention on oneself, because what we focus on is where our frequency spends its time. So if we want to feel more worthy, we have to do things that make us feel worthy. And if we feel unworthy, for example, of asking for our needs to be met, then we need to ask for our needs to be met. If we feel unworthy of having material things, then we have to feel like we're worthy of those material things. And it all starts in our thoughts, in our minds. So we can visualize how we feel when those material things or those goals or desires are manifest in our experience, and just practice feeling the feeling that we want to feel. And we can decide to feel worthy, and we can decide to feel happy. And when we have feelings or frequencies that make us feel otherwise, then we can integrate those feelings and acknowledge them in that moment. When, for example, if I try to feel worthy and I just don't feel worthy, then I can just explore that feeling and say, why don't I feel worthy? And debunk all the reasons that my thoughts might give me. Because in my deepest soul, I know that I'm worthy. And so I can contradict the thoughts and beliefs that I might have about myself and say, this is how I was made to feel, which is trauma, but I don't have to agree with that anymore, because I want to believe that I'm worthy. I want to feel worthy. So then we can move closer into the feeling that we want to have and farther away from the feeling that we automatically have. It's just a matter of intention and focus. And if we're not conscious of where we're putting our focus, then we're going to keep repeating the creation of things that we don't prefer. Whereas if we focus on the things that we prefer, then, and we spend more time focusing and creating an intention and having an intention and being intentional, then we will change how we experience other beings and our reality.
What does it mean for a human being to have boundaries?
It starts with self-knowledge, knowing oneself, feeling one's own feelings, being strong in the knowing of this is me, and I accept me completely, so that when other encroaches upon what are called boundaries, it's their frequency is clearly other, and while maintaining a frequency of complete unconditional acceptance of self, when an other approaches and impinges their frequency upon the self, it's a clear recognition of other versus me, and one can unconditionally accept the other when one has complete understanding of what is me. So the most important thing is to understand oneself so that one can distinguish the self from the other and hold that space of love unconditionally for both.
What are good ways to set boundaries with others?
Know oneself completely and be clear with oneself about one's preferences, so that when one is offered something that doesn't align with one's own desires of experience and frequency, one can politely decline and still love the other unconditionally.
How can we tell whether we are just setting a boundary with someone or whether we are going too far and infringing upon their free will?
When one knows oneself and they know their own boundaries, in other words, their own unconditional love and their own frequency, that frequency becomes strong. There's a strong sense of me. There's a strong sense of identity of the God self that is inhabiting this body. And in interactions with others, we call family or friends, then with our strong sense of self, we recognize unconditionally the strong identity of another. If another doesn't have a strong identity of themselves, our identity of me, unconditionally staying loving, allows them to have the experiences that they need to have that journey toward their strong identity of their own God self. So we always focus on me. And when you have a clear knowing of who is me, then you can unconditionally accept all the things that you see other me's wanting to be. So it's always about frequency.
Can you say something about the nature of courage? What is courage?
Courage is also in harmony with a strong sense of me.
Why do we sometimes feel that we lack courage?
This reality we experience is all about forgetting the highest version of me and interacting with other versions of me who haven't yet, or who may not be focused on what they're actually doing. Just as I'm not always focused on what I'm actually doing. We have a lot of distraction and a lot of energy that is being put around us to keep us from focusing. And so it's a challenge for us to remember the true nature of our divinity, but it really is all an illusion. It's all a program or a projection, and our stillness enables us to perceive.
And how can we feel more courageous? How can we build courage in ourselves?
What we call meditation, inward thinking about our feelings and our thoughts, and really getting to know our bodies and our souls and that which makes up me. And it seems like a simple answer, And it's only deep at the same time because of all the extra energy we have surrounding us. Distraction and programming and belief. So much of it has built up in this reality, on this plane, on this experience, that it's like cutting through a fog of energy. And there's a lot of fear to not participate in things, as if we don't keep feeding the machine, so to speak, then we won't survive or we won't be supported. But it takes what is called courage to stop participating and to turn inward and focus on me. And if you take the leap of faith and try it, then you will see reality change for yourself.
Our world is bringing us a lot of challenges at this time. Can you say something about why so many challenges are coming all at once, it seems like?
The energy of the planet itself is changing. There's an influx of energy from the sun. There's an influx of awakening energy, which just means that it holds the space for multidimensional awareness, more so than ever in the past, in what would be called history. And because there is so much programming and belief that is built up on this earth plane, kind of like if you imagine flying in an airplane, there's the cloud layers, and then when you're in an airplane, you're above the clouds and you can see down below just how much there is. There's an opening for all humanity to rise above the clouds, but because the clouds have been manufactured or created, and it seems super cloudy and rainy, and the weather is just causing people to just not be able to do what they would like to do, which is get on an airplane and get above the clouds. It just seems like the focus of the energy is only on the weather. As a metaphor, the weather is demanding the attention of the beings on this planet. And so it seems like it's chaos, it seems like it's crazy, but that's because of the belief system that what you see in your immediate environment, like, to use the metaphor of the weather, it's raining, it's cloudy, it's snowing, and it's sleeting all at the same time. It seems crazy, but actually going within and tapping into the feelings that all of this crazy weather causes us, enables us to rise above the atmosphere so that we can see our multidimensionalness. And then we can recognize the chaos and the insanity for what it is, which is just weather, which is passing and dissolving and also moving just like we are.
And while we're in the middle of these challenges, do you have any advice for how we can deal with them?
Meditate, plenty of sleep, eating healthy, recognizing addiction. When we're eating or doing or being something compulsively, that's a distraction and it's not helping. If we can't control the things that we put in our mouth or in our eyes or in our ears or in our bodies, then those things probably aren't helping. They're probably causing us to have more suffering. So if we start to recognize that we may be participating in an addiction and we physiologically have trouble letting it go, then we may have a really difficult period of time. But the most important thing is to recognize an addiction and detox from whatever that addiction may be, and understand that going through that withdrawal period is worth it, and there's happiness on the other side.
Those were my questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. That was very healing. Before I come out of this state, does anybody else want to ask anything?
How do one know thyself?
There's an exercise you can do, like close your eyes and imagine the middle of your forehead where your third eye is, and visualize looking at it with your eyes closed. Imagine that you can see it. Focus your eyes on it. If in a physical body, it might feel like you're straining your eyeballs to look inside your own head. So try to use your eyeballs to look at your third eye and focus on seeing yourself, and practice that for a period of time every day, and focus on seeing oneself clearly. And also, an exercise is to put one's hand on one's heart, and with the eyes closed, again, visualize looking into one's heart, and allow any questions that one has to come naturally, and ask the heart what I need, or what do I feel, and just focus your energy on your body, and focus your energy on the places in your body that speak to you. For example, next time you feel pain in your knee, for example, wherever you are, if you're at the mall and you're busy, just stop. Sit down and, like a small child, sit down and talk to your knee, if that's what's hurting. And ask your knee, what can I do for you? What do you need? And treat every feeling that you have like a child. Because as a metaphor, if you have a child, you know that if your child needs attention or they need something, and you're too busy to listen, the child will not stop crying or freaking out. And you have to stop what you're doing. You have to. And to address the child so that they will stop crying. And we should treat our bodies the same way. When our bodies and our feelings speak, we should stop what we're doing and focus on me. What do I need right now? And when we use the metaphor of the weather and the rain and the crazy snowing and all that, it's distracting. So that we think, I can't focus on me because I have to deal with getting things done in the midst of this insanity. But actually it's the opposite. The way to improve the creation and the feeling and the perception of insanity is to focus inwardly and treat oneself like a child in need and drop everything. And that's the fear. Being afraid to drop everything as if the world will stop. Well, maybe that's what the world needs, actually. It's for each of us to stop what we're doing and focus on our pain and our feelings and whatever it is that we need so that we can feel relief and then start creating from a better feeling.
Like, how can I make the difference between taking care of the pain from a place to care and love, or from a place of fear?
Well, the fear and the care and the love all belong to the one that is you. It could be fear of loving oneself, fear of caring for oneself, and one would have to ask why. Why, first of all, is there any fear? Where did it come from? And to, once addressed, know that that fear is no longer a threat and one is safe and deserving and worthy and needing of love. So one can look at the fear and see what it looks like. For example, one could draw a picture of the fear and give it eyes and a face, and look at the fear that one feels and channel and may be surprised that it looks like someone knows. So if one draws a picture of the fear and it looks like a face, then one can forgive that face that causes the fear and send love to the self that is me and the self that is the other who created that feeling. And just hold it like a baby.
What can your guides tell us about the origins of our soul?
Each soul has a different origin. Speaking in that context, all come from the one source. But some pieces of the source choose to begin, and then they have a memory that goes back to that origin that they may be able to recall in dreams. But the most important thing about a question like that is that it's how relevant is it to what you're experiencing now. So there's a lot of idealizing distraction about meaning, but again, going back to the exercise of self and focusing on oneself, if one wants to travel themselves to the source of their memories as a being that is separate from the one, it's a very personal, an individual journey that can be very rewarding and rich, because if it's taken as a journey as a goal of knowing oneself, then one would be able to find that information through themselves in a dream, or in dreams, or in meditation, or in knowings. We all have experiences with other beings, but all of us do things for ourselves. Even when a person offers readings, they do it fundamentally for the self-healing. And if an individual goes to another for a reading, they're doing that for the self. So each self is having an experience of self-evolution. And you can recognize the frequency when you experience a conversation with another self, for example, about what is my soul origin. That other being may have ideas or thoughts, but it's coming from the self. The best way to gain that knowledge and understanding is from the self. And that would be focusing inward on your third eye and your heart and asking your own guides for dreams, for knowings, but also after asking, staying open and being open to receive and being willing to receive. There's a quote from Jesus that said, "Your faith is what heals you." And faith is the fundamental platform for receiving divine information about oneself. So all of these experiences that we have with other selves, our focus is often on the other self. And we compare ourself with the other self. What am I and what are you? And there's a need and there's a lot of space for more unconditional love, primarily toward the self. And once one is full of unconditional love for the self, the one can recognize what the others are or are not, or that they recognize the difference between self and other. So all that information is in the self, but one has to love oneself in order to obtain it, which means one has to believe in oneself. And it doesn't matter if you believe in anybody else. It only matters if you believe in yourself. You have the answer. I want to live in this energy all the time. I want to walk and just be all the time in this feeling. You made me cry.
I did. How did I do that?
Asking about worthy, I just felt this energy flood through me of like, because I feel it like telepathy, like I know what you're going to ask before you ask it.
Mm.
And I can definitely feel the channel opening.
Yeah.
And it definitely feels different than anything we've ever done before. And it's like it's more than just, it's not like I hear any words or anything. It's just like knowing. It's just like a flowing feeling, and I can feel the frequency of it. And so when you asked about worthiness, I felt like warm tears. It was like I just felt it. I felt worthy, and it's not a familiar feeling to me. Yeah, that's why we've had to go for like 7 years, like not, because when you don't feel worthy, then you're more susceptible to some kind of entity coming and saying, "Oh, you're so special. You have all the answers. You can help humanity." And I'm not, you know, I don't want to channel anything like that. And so that's why the healing, the point I'm trying to make is when you asked that, I really felt it. It was like I felt worthy. And that's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like my mouth is kind of mush, but I don't know. I feel too much. There's like an information overload that I don't have enough.
Yeah.
Just not enough words and language. My mouth, have you ever watched, I don't know, sorry, but our meat bodies don't communicate very well.
Yeah.
Have you ever like watched somebody who doesn't speak the language that you speak, or you don't speak their language? Have you ever watched them talk and like looked at their mouth physically, and they're like, that's what it's like. It's like we are like, how are we communicating in these bodies? We're mostly communicating telepathically with frequency. Our energy communicates, Like I have a cousin who's deaf, and she would project this energy. And when anyone deaf comes into my space, they are projecting an energy, and their mouth and their physical bodies are hindering their ability to communicate. But there's so much more happening when you communicate. And that's what I experienced with this channeling.
It's not translatable, or it's not you translate like a portion of it.
Yeah.
Because it's telepathy what's happening, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it's frequency. And yeah, that's why we've had to do all this healing, is because I don't want to bring through all the shit that I've been through. Y'all don't need that. We've all got that of our own. So I want to be able to channel like a really pure thing that we can all align with. And like, I want to take this feeling and I just want to live in it myself. And what does that look like for me? I don't know, but thank you guys. You ever heard the term twin flame?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, you found him.
Yeah, we found each other.
Oh.
I didn't even know what a twin flame was. Wasn't even looking. I had no idea. But I just knew somebody was out there my whole life. I'm very artistic. I'll draw. When I drew a self-portrait, there was always two of me. Like one shadow of a silhouette there. And I always thought, maybe do I have like, one of my parents had another child. I have a sibling out there. There was somebody, I felt like there was somebody out there. Like a brother or somebody. But no, my parents didn't have children. It's like, what is this feeling? And right when I started forgetting about that feeling, my life started falling apart, and I started posting on Facebook, and then he answered a post, and I looked at a picture of him, and it said, I heard that frequency in my head, that's him. There he is. I was like,
what does that mean?
I don't even know what that means. But I need to talk to you. Can you call me? Like, can we talk on video chat? He's like, sure. And it was just like, looking at his face, like, why do you look so familiar?
And we have talked for hours. You were in America and I was here. We talked for hours every day. Since then, we did not miss one day.
Yeah.
Not one. And and then, of course, eventually we started being together, and then we still talk for hours.
Yeah. Now we have a kid that keeps us. Otherwise, if we didn't have a child, we would never go to bed. Yeah. We would sleep all day. Stay up all night just talking. It's fun.
Yes. He talks a lot, too.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, he does.